Nyny everyone, Mary here again. I know it's not been 6 months since my last video. It's a miracle. I have been busy though. Last Sunday, quite a momentous occasion, I actually got married. I'm not kidding. I got married. I am no longer a single woman. I am married to a very lovely man. His name's Russell. So maybe things will change, hopefully not too much. Hopefully I can keep making videos. I can't see the reason why not unless they start having kids, but other than that, yeah, that's what's been happening. Yeah, big thing. So, but anyway, I digress. Yeah, so my wedding was actually on Osset's birthday, or Isis, the 16th. I kind of go by that Kemetic Reform calendar that Sharon Laborde made, mostly because I don't want to have to calculate the heliacal rising of Sirius every year. So, and you know, it kind of throws back to ancient times when the ancient Egyptians celebrated Wet Rompet, or the New Year, in their time, because you know, with stellar progression, their New Year was much earlier than ours, which is now in August because of the stellar progression. So I kind of like to, you know, throw back to that time period and celebrate as the ancient Egyptians probably used to. So that's my difference. You know, a lot of people decide that they're gonna have their wet run pet at their local location when the star Sirius, you know, rises right before sunrise, and that's fine. I kind of see it as the difference between like the Catholic Church and Orthodox Christianity, that sort of thing. So it's pretty much whatever floats your boat or whatever fits your calendar best. So that's just how I roll. Um, yeah, that's another thing that's been happening. I celebrated all the birthdays as well as I could, you know, while trying to set up for a wedding. Other than that, you know, just some other things mulling around in my head. Um, Sharon Laborde, she made that recent video, or relatively recent, about chocolate and offerings to the gods, and how, you know, certain chocolates she likes to offer rather than, like, say Hershey's or Mars, because you know that's not fair trade and stuff like that. And you know, I kind of have to agree with that, because you know, a lot of those cheaper chocolates, you know, Hershey's, Mars, you know, stuff you can, you know, readily get at the store a lot of the time, isn't the highest quality. I mean, put all the organic and fair trade stuff aside. The Green and Black brand is one of my favorite brands of chocolate. So that's what I often offer to the Netgeru when I offer chocolate. I don't always offer like Hershey's chocolate to them, because it feels kind of grainy. You know what I mean? I guess it's my guess is probably it's sugar, the sugar in the chocolate. There's so much sugar, it actually kind of feels like a grainy or sandy texture in their chocolate, rather than like Ghirardelli. I have no idea. It's that San Francisco chocolate, or Green and Black, or that one where she was mentioning the endangered species. I've used that one before and it's very nice. I'm not so much a fan of the really dark chocolates, although I will eat them if they're put in front of me. I prefer dark, or not dark, milk chocolate. Or Green and Black used to have this one that was a white chocolate bar, but they discontinued it, and I was so sad when they did, because it was so smooth and creamy, and I loved offering it to them, to the Netgeru. Yeah, that kind of leads me into a segue about other types of offerings to the Netgeru, and what kind of offerings people offer. And it's really interesting because so much of offerings are personalized and given the individual. I mean, for a lot of Comedics, rather than, you know, other traditions like Greco Roman or Celtic traditions where you have to leave the offering out and give it to the gods and almost, you know, pretty much sacrifice it because you're not using it. Comedics are different in the sense that, much like in the older days, all those offerings that we give revert back to us for our use. So temple workers back in ancient Egypt could revert those offerings back to them, and that's how the temple workers got paid. So all the grain, all the bread, all the wine, all the crops, fruit got brought back to temple workers as their form of payment. So they would keep working at the temple. That was their wage, pretty much, because they didn't have money back then. So it's kind of interesting in that sense, because for us, when Comedics give their offerings, we're essentially offering the essence of that object to the Netru, whether it be or incense or water or milk, food, anything. You know, we're not necessarily offering the physical object itself, but the essence of that object. And in turn, the Netru give their blessing that we take on when we consume that food. So it's greatly different from a lot of other Reconstructionist or even like Wiccan traditions. Oh man. It kind of makes me think about some stuff that I've come across, because a lot of people, they have their different ideas on what they like to offer, and it's mostly, you know, just you know, subjective. It's just your own desires and what you like, what you know you will eat and what you like to eat, as opposed to anything else, because, you know, to not eat it is almost sort of a form of insult. It's like, you know, oh, I don't want your blessing, you know. So a lot of people are like, well, you have to eat or you have to consume whatever offering that you give the Netru. And I can understand that. I mean, but in other times, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I am a purist when I come to offerings, because sometimes, you know, I'll offer like sweets and chocolate and different things that aren't technically healthy for you, but at the same sense, I'm kind of a snob, I guess you could say, because I know of people who give certain things that I definitely would not give the Netru, in my own personal opinion, like soda. Soda is a big one. I gave up soda quite a few years ago. I only use it as like every once in a while kind of treat, but it has such negative connotations with me that I would never offer it to the Netru. Because pretty much it's just sugar water. And I know a lot of hard candies are just sugar and flavoring and stuff like that, but it just seems just not proper to me to give soda to the Netru, because it's not healthy. There's no nutritional substance to it, and you know, even though, you know, we don't know about, you know, the magical aspects of it, I can't think of anything particularly good about soda that, you know, its essence, astral or otherwise, that could be given to the Netru that they could actually appreciate. So it is just my personal opinion. You know, you might offer that sort of thing because it's a sweet treat. You know, I even drink it myself every once in a while. It's like, yeah, I can afford to drink a soda, like a can of soda. Um, so what, you know, your mileage may vary. Um, and there's another thing that I've run across that it's like, because like on Tumblr and some other areas like that, people will often talk about giving, how do I put it, fake food, like model food, like wax fruit, or like little tiny hamburgers made out of plastic or something like that, as offerings to the Netru. Or other people will say, well, I go on the astral plane and then I give stuff to the Netru. And I find this even more hinky, I guess you could say, or more suspect, because, well, I don't want to say that there's no such thing as the astral plane, because, you know, who am I to say? or model food even too, because that was a common Egyptian practice. But the thing about that was a lot of the time those model foods were left in tombs, either in an actual like wax form or something like that, or as a painting on the tomb wall, and that was supposed to represent the deceased actually consuming that or having that within the afterlife. But at the same time, it's a facsimile that was made specifically for the person who lived in that tomb, in the case that there wasn't any like real offerings that could be given by the priests that were paid or anything like that. It was sort of like a stopgap or a contingency plan, if you could say that, in the case that real offerings weren't made. And I kind of see that, back with the model food and back with, the sort of astral thing that goes on that some people claim to do. Both of those, it's sort of supposed to be a contingency plan. I think the only way that, in my mind, would be permissible would be if you were really sick or you were, of a limited budget and you couldn't offer, foodstuffs on a regular basis. Like, well, for instance, I've been sick during certain holidays, so I will, go into a meditative state and then, do my ritual in that respect and actually give offerings there. But I was sick. I couldn't do it, within the physical plane, actually stand at my altar and give the physical offering myself because I was just too sick. I didn't have the strength to, stand up for a very long time or be out of bed for a while. I've never used model food myself because I don't want to have, wax food on hand. Space is limited enough as it is. But there are people who say, oh, this is perfectly acceptable or this is fine. And it's like, I would keep it at, only on a not so regular basis, on a very rare occasion when all else fails. And a lot of people, I guess you could say, well, I wouldn't say they all agree with me, like a lot of people agree with me or anything like that, but there is a certain subset of comedics that, it's like, hey, if you can, you should give the real offerings. And I know a lot of people, they don't have the money for a lot of fancy foods. I mean, like the chocolate that I mentioned earlier in the video, that's some fancy chocolate. It's a good quality chocolate, but it costs quite a bit of money. But there's no reason why most people can't offer water. Like water is, if you're paying the water bill, or if your parents are paying the water bill or anything like that, you've got water on hand, fresh, clean water. Unless you're living like in Flint, Michigan, but then you've got plenty more problems. Or something that I used to do when I was younger and I worked on an organic farm. I would actually make my breakfast in the mornings, like a nice big breakfast of eggs, toasts, and coffee, other goodies like that. And I would actually have my morning ritual and dedicate all those my breakfast to Sekhmet. It's like, I made these eggs and the toast. I offer them to you, and then after my morning ritual, it would revert to me, and I'd eat it for breakfast. So you can do that if you are strapped for cash and you can't afford extra offerings. You can offer the stuff you are going to eat anyway, or anything that you are going to use anyway. I wouldn't think it for so much for like people who are on a strap budget, but like flowers. I had a lot of wedding flowers. I used some for wet brawn pet. Uh, but yeah, if you're creative enough, you can find offerings even on, if you have to squeeze every penny. And there are ways that you can offer, real physical offerings and the essence of that physical offering to the Neteru rather than having to resort to more tenuous model offerings, or astral offerings, or whatever you'd like to call it. So just keep that in mind. If you want to discuss it anymore, let me know in the comments. And thank you for listening. Synepti, I'll see you again.